What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again, and this time we are here with Jason of In the Blind. It is great to be able to talk with you. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Alex, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime, man. Anytime. You got the new album, Evolve and Escape, the debut In the Blind album. This record is absolutely kick ass. It came out this past November. For
Thanks.
What was the overall making and the experience of this album like? Was there a sort of like a preconceived vision in a way? How did Evolve and Escape sort of evolve, pun intended, over time?
So I'm in a number of other bands. I'm in a band called Dog Fashion Disco and Polka Dot Cadaver, and we have many projects that we're working on all the time. And this was kind of a batch of songs that I had been working on my own for a period of time that never really had a place with those other bands. It's some material that I was interested in doing. I always kind of wanted to do a band that was, had a refused influence and had kind of an odd time signature that makes you feel like it's not odd time signature feel with some people who I had never worked with before but always wanted to. So In the Blind it's Bill Gall, a friend of mine forever, who was the bass player in a band called Nothing Face back in the day. They were
Amazing band.
killer and a huge influence on work that I did and have done and continue to do. The drummer is my drummer from Dog Fashion Disco, who's phenomenal. Like, there are very few of him in existence. And the singer is a guy named Josh Grosskopf, who was the singer in a band called Me Gosh, who Dog Fashion Disco took on tour forever ago. And I was like, man, that dude is a really, really good singer. And, it just kind of, the planets kind of aligned, and, it worked out that we were able to put that record together. And it's been a while. So I've been working on that record for quite some time. And it was, the first time in my sort of journey where I've been able to assemble a band from the ground up that's, I would call like my band, with the people I wanted to do it with. I joined my other bands, but this is the first time that I was able to really build it myself.
Yeah.
So the proverbial buck stops with me on this one.
All the pressure's on you this time.
All the pressure, man.
Yeah, yeah, don't fuck up. Well, it worked
Sink or
out.
swim.
Well, that pressure.
Yeah, I'm super proud of the record, man. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's not for everyone, and that's fine. But yeah, I really dig it. I think it turned out good.
Yeah, no, it definitely did. When you open up with Evolve and Escape, it just hits you square in the face with a track like Call of the Void and
Yeah.
K is for Killer, and you go to a trap like Welcome to America. But you mentioned like these songs were kind of like sitting here for a while. So when we hear this material, is this how these songs were originally structured in a way, or did they sort of like change a lot over a span of time?
Some yes and some no. Yeah, like Evolve and Escape so that was the first song. It's ironic that ended up being the title track. It ended up being the first song on the record. Like, that song, as the musical arrangement, has been around for, oh, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. It's taken, oh, even longer than that. And it just never had a home anywhere. But I knew that was sort of the template that I wanted for this other group. So, that like other things kind of grew from that. And there's a couple other tracks on the record that kind of had that, like I said before, that refused sort of feel. Are you familiar with Refused?
I love Refuse. I interviewed them right before the end of the
Awesome.
world.
Yeah, so they have like, they do these weird things where like a song is, like they play a 4/4 drum beat over, not to confuse everyone that doesn't exactly know, but like a 4/4 drum beat over a part of a song that's in 5 or in 7, and it like finds a way to work itself out. And then when you have a singer that's singing over he can kind of, even out these weird things. And, you get people to bob their heads to something that's in 7/8 or 5/4 or whatever. I really like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, I consider this album to be like a very experimental album because I see
it is, for
many
sure.
elements from between like post-hardcore. I see
Yeah,
some industrial in there, and I see plenty of different
absolutely.
elements that go all along the periodic table of subgenres in a way. So, is it fair to say that maybe like
I agree with that.
there was a lot more flexibility with exploring uncharted territory with this, and like you weren't really
Oh,
confined.
for sure.
I feel like Dog Fashion Disco or a band like Nothing Face, they do have like a sound in a way. Not to say that Dog
Yeah.
Fashion Disco is like ACDC, but like I think, there's a sound that fans of Dog Fashion Disco love. Here, I think any fan of metal could appreciate this.
I totally agree. And DFD, so DFD is a weird band in that way. It doesn't have like DFD is a genre hopping band for people that aren't really familiar with it. It goes from Slayer to like a Johnny Cash murder ballad, and everything in between. And we mix together these genres in a single song. But the style of DFD is that it does that. So it's like people expect it to be this, odd, weird thing, that you're trying to write things into that, bizarre category. This is a little different in that, it's pretty much, it's pretty much in that one direction of, like you said, like post-hardcore, like it does have those elements, and kind of like a new school sort of vibe, I guess. But it definitely is a single genre, which and I think a single cohesive thought throughout the whole album, um, which I really wanted to do. It's been I'm kind of like an old school metalhead, um, from forever ago, and that's really my wheelhouse. Like my wheelhouse is writing metal songs. So that's really what I wanted to do, and I think that's kind of what we did do.
But with the formation of In the Blind, was like your other influences sort of like present on here? Were you like maybe trying to combine elements of Nothing Face and elements of Dog Fashion Disco, or were you all trying to completely distance yourself from your quote unquote
Not
day jobs?
Yeah, not consciously, but I think that I think that whatever you've done in the past informs what you do in the future, or in the present. It's not something I set out to do. I didn't try to distance myself from that stuff while I was writing these songs, but I think that all of that experience with the other bands, definitely helped write this. But it's not something I was trying to do. I wasn't trying to avoid, you know, the weirder stuff, per se. But it's just kind of what came out. Like and again, like some of these tunes, may have been started, and they probably were started for the other bands. But I have a hard drive on my computer, with hundreds of songs started in it, and as I work on them, I don't really put any pressure on myself to decide what it is right away. I just kind of work on it until it gets to a point where I'm like, this sounds like a polka dot song, and then you just kind of put it in that tranche. Like you work on something and be like, this might be a Knives Out song, and you put it over in this other category. And then I had these other tunes that are like, man, I don't know what this is. Like this is an In the Blind song. So that's where these things started to come from. They didn't fit really with the other bands, and then I leaned into it and really, wrote some other stuff that was similar to those tunes. So yeah.
In order to like get that inspiration in a way, like that creative energy to write anything, do you almost like have a usual place that you go to in order to cultivate ideas, or does inspiration just strike out of the blue for you?
Honestly, man, I don't want to come off like a like a jerk here, but I never run out of song ideas. I just don't. So, and I it may happen eventually. I don't know. But I'll sit down at the computer, and every time I sit at the computer and try to write something, I come up with something. So and I just put it into, like I said, into a folder, and it may just be a little piece of something. And I save it all, but it hasn't happened yet, knock on wood.
Yeah.
But you know, I don't, and like I said, I don't put any undue pressure on myself. Like, I could put something in the computer and never look at it, or not look at it for, another 2 years or whatever. And then I'll go back and be like, oh yeah, that thing. Like I'm trying to put together a Polka Dot Cadaver album. That could be cool here. Um, it's really, I just sit here, in my little studio in my house, and I'll pick away at stuff and watch the news.
Yeah.
It's really there's really I don't need any like scented candles or
Yeah. You got the
mood
fog
lighting.
machine. You got the
I don't
fog
need a
machine.
well. That's a humidifier. I live in Maine. It's friggin' dry up here, man. My poor skin. It's like flaking off.
That's pretty metal though. Having
Yeah.
you fill the apartment up with fog as you're like you might have some inspiration right there as your skin peels off, the ideas come out.
Exactly. As I disintegrate sitting here in my chair.
That's
So yeah, no,
that's
it's I
that's
don't need anything special to be inspired. And if I'm not inspired, honestly, I just walk away. Like I don't sit here and try and beat myself over the head. Like there's plenty of ideas to pull from. And honestly, like for the other projects like DFD and Polka Dot, the singer Todd Smith, who is super talented and comes up with songs himself, and we work on them together. And you know, it's it's never been a problem coming up with material for these things. I mean, our record label, Razor to Wrist Records, we have over 20 releases now that are ours on our label, and that's in addition to the catalog. I mean, I think we have over 30 albums now for all the bands that we're involved in. So it's you know, we just churn them out.
he, Tool can learn a thing or two, maybe.
Hey man, hey, well, Tools. I think they've learned what they need to learn. I think they're all right.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But does it always come from an internal source though, in a way, or is it coming, or you are like externally inspired, or both? Like, do you almost like, is there like a lot of observation that's involved within your songwriting process?
That's a good question, man. I mean, it comes. I think it's internal. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's these things. I don't know. I mean, either you have the ability to do this stuff or you don't, and I thankfully just I do. So like I don't know what else I would be doing if I wasn't coming up with songs here.
Yeah.
So I don't really need external you know I don't need to pull from things. I just kind of can do it. And that is to say that from a musical standpoint, I don't write the lyrics and I don't write the melodies. That's the singers are responsible for those, and they probably pull from everywhere. That's just Josh does that, and to a larger extent, Todd, the singer for DFD. I mean, he keeps a notebook. Actually, it's in his phone now. And we'll be on tour, and he'll see a street sign, like, and write it down and be like, oh, that's a cool name for something. And 2 years later, there'll be a song that's that street sign, and he'll have this whole thing. He did it with a song called Cottonwood River, which we just drove by a sign on tour. It's Cottonwood River. And, there's suddenly a song you know, that appears on an El Creepo record, 3 years later. That's that. So I think it's different for singers than it is for the musical creators.
Yeah.
So I can sit here and come up with stuff, and just assemble songs. The lyrical and melody aspect is a little bit different.
But how do you know when you're finished with a song?
When a song, um, that's a good question too. I don't know if you ever are. I think you just have to call it good. Like I think that I forget who said that. There's a famous quote about that a painter that like said forever ago. Said it's never really finished. It's just you just put an end date on it. And because I could sit here and tweak songs forever, but for me, like when things start to have interesting musical hooks that stand alone even before vocals are on them, that's when I kind of know I'm onto something. I enjoy the create like if it holds a listener's attention, and I mean, really, the only one is me listening to it. But if it holds my attention, and throughout the course of the structure, then I feel like it's pretty good. And I've actually gotten less precious about things as I've kind of progressed. Like now I'm much more willing to throw things away now and be like, you know what, that just doesn't work, and you rework it and do some different things. Whereas before, like, you know, like you put time into it, it's good, like you make it work. Um, but it doesn't always. So, and now it's funny what happens. You know, I'll work on something, you know, a section of a song, and you know, I'll come up with a part over that section. I really like the part that I did over the section. And I'm like, you know what? But the part underneath it doesn't really work. And before you know it, the part that inspired the next sections of the song no longer exist in the song. It's just this weird, like, it's a weird way of working. But you know, I'm not super precious about like any of it. I just, you know, want to put together an interesting, you know, musical piece.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like In the Blind has done that for sure. Like, I feel like those songs are, you know, interesting from front to back. They hold your attention. You know, you're not trying to forward to the next song.
Yeah,
So
definitely. I feel like with this album, I need all of it. I can't just have, you know, one song
yeah,
or one single or something like that. But
I agree with that, man. I'm pumped. I'm really glad you like it.
yeah,
So it was a lot of work getting that one to come to life, but I'm pleased that you enjoy it, and thank you for playing it on your station.
yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thank you. And the final question I wanted to ask you is do you find it easier to write music when you're more alone in isolation and there's nothing between you and your instrumentation, or do you prefer to be in the
100%.
company of your band? Could being in the company of your bandmates actually help cultivate better?
Being in the company of bandmates, I've discovered over the years, hinders my process for sure. Like, I like bringing complete pieces of music to them. And then we can work them out in the studio, fine tune things. But having a structure to work from, I think, helps everyone. Um, there have been a lot of, you know, over the years in rehearsals, a lot of blank faces staring at each other, trying to figure out what comes next. Um, and I have no desire to do that anymore, man. I've been doing this a long, long time, and I would rather sit here on my own and come up with something that I think will work for the project and bring it to them. And honestly, like I said, I'm not super precious anymore about it. If they don't like it, that's fine. It goes back in the hard drive, and we use it for something else later or not. So, and one thing to discover too, like for songwriters out there, you know, like if your singer can't, who are people who are writing the music, if your singer can't come up with something, if it doesn't inspire him or her to come up with a hook or a melody or a lyric over it, then can it
It wasn't
go
meant
do
to be.
something else with it. It just doesn't matter if they can't work with what you have. You have to come up with something else, and you know, kind of find that common ground, unless you're the singer.
Yeah.
So, which I'm not.
Yeah.
So
What? Yeah, yeah. You and the drummer and the bassist all have the burden of carrying the gear, and the singer doesn't.
that's right.
So you have that.
We have the burden of doing the actual physical labor.
Yeah, there was
The
a
singer has the burden of lifting a few beers at the bar while everyone else
the,
carries the gear out.
the Hard Times wrote an article about that, like singer wows band by actually helping load in or something like that.
I read that. It's
Yeah,
pretty good. Actually, I'm very fortunate. Both all of the singers that I've worked with over the years are pretty good about helping out. So
yeah. They carry the
it's
mic.
nice.
They carry the microphone.
That's right. They carry their own gear.
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time and thank you for this amazing album. Just is there anything else you would like to promote with the release of Evolve and Escape? Any gigs coming up or anything else you'd like to plug for any project you're in?
Well, Polka Dot Cadaver is going on tour at the end of the August and September. If you guys want to check out razortourist.com, that's razortowrist.com. That's our record label website. All of the projects that I'm involved with are there. That's our record label. It's completely DIY. We're signing new bands that aren't us. It's turning into a real business, and I'm super pumped about that. But yeah, anything that we're involved with, check it out. And I appreciate you guys doing it.
Thank you so much. Everybody, we are here with In the Blind, Evolve and Escape. Be sure to pick it up now while supplies last forever. We will see you next time on Heavy New York.